On.
All right. Hi, we're doing another YouTube video. It's live from Willdale, but not really live from late night from Willdale. Not really late night from Willdale, but um, we did a little video last week, pre-inaugural and pre-Trump inaugural, but I thought we'd do one post-Trump inaugural, and because Trump's inaugural and his speech made me think. I First of all, I thought his inaugural speech was graceless and simplistic, and the fact that he didn't thank Hillary Clinton or acknowledge her, I thought was pretty sad. But and then he went on about America first and all the carnage in America and all that, and he talked about somewhat withdrawing from the world, but his theme was America first. And I thought about it later, and it's particularly after I read the Toronto Star's front page editorial on Saturday about his speech and the highlight of America First. And I thought, he's on to something there. On second glance, he's on to something there. America First. That might be beneficial to the world. It would be beneficial to the world if Donald Trump withdrew the United States from the world. This whole idea of the mantra of American global leadership and the U.S. architecture that set up after the Second World War, and the United States emerged from the Second World War as the most powerful country in the history of humankind, far more powerful than any other country in the history of the world, and hence they became the world's policemen, and that has led to all sorts of problems. There are some positives, I guess, but many problems, and it made me think, made me think why, like this quixotic notion that the U.S. should rule the world, a world that is very big and complex. And this quixotic notion that any one nation can rule this big and complex world is simply absurd. There are limits to any one country's power, and that includes the United States. There are actually limits to American power. And they can only do so many things. And I just thought the United States has been on the wrong track for a long time. It's obsessed with its credibility on the world stage. Its overweening ambitions in the sense that it can control every war, every political crisis. It can intervene everywhere. It's absurd. It's not normal. It's not rational. This idea that the United States is omnipotent and it can do whatever it wants. It's not rational, and it's not normal, and the monies they've expended on this. The United States has a military budget that is bigger than all other nations of the world combined. Like they have 10 carrier groups roaming the planet Earth. Like, it's incredible. And I thought, if Donald Trump wants to make America first thing he's got to do is cut the military budget, really downsize it, and put that money into investing in America, roads, airports, infrastructure, better social policies, better social programs. That if he's really serious about putting America first, he will downsize the military budget and close a lot of bases. The United States can't control every conflict. Syria was a classic example. There are internecine civil wars going on all around the world, in Yemen, in Somalia, in the eastern Congo, in South Sudan, and there are only limits to what there's limits to American interventionism and what the Americans can do. We've seen since the Second World War. We've seen American intervention in Korea, in Vietnam, in Central America, and trying to overthrow Castro. Of course, in Iraq, obviously being one of the worst examples. And of course, Iraq is an interesting example because a lot of people see Iraq as where ISIS was born. But then we have to look at American interventionism going back to the Carter administration. In 1979, when the Soviets invaded Afghanistan, the Carter administration poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the CIA to fund the Mujahideen, to fund the resistance against the Soviets in Afghanistan. And the Mujahideen turned, eventually, were not nice people, okay? Ronald Reagan compared them to the founding fathers, invited someone to the White House and all that. But Gukman Hakhtimar used to throw acid in women's faces if they weren't wearing the veil or the hijab. They weren't nice people. And once the Soviets withdrew and the Americans thought they won that battle, the Mujahideen morphed into the Taliban, into Al Qaeda, and eventually flew planes into the World Trade Center. And then again morphed again into ISIS. It all goes back to a mistake in American foreign policy. And of course, when the United States invaded, one of the biggest instruments of U.S. foreign policy post-Shah was to contain Iran. And of course, by pumping up Saddam Hussein, and then eventually falling out with him, and then the invasion of Iraq, of course, bolstered Iran. Iran became a major regional power, which was always a goal the U.S. never wanted. So what I'm saying is, the United States is always self-defeating in some of its interventions. And I think, going back to Trump, if Trump withdraws from the world in some of this interventionism, that'll be a good thing. It'll be a good thing for the world, and it'll be a good thing for America, especially if he cuts down on U.S. Military expenditures. The United States has to understand there are only so many things they can do, and there are limits even to American power. And the United States and its policymakers and some of the folks in Washington just don't get it. There are people in the Pentagon who actually get it, but a lot of people who run these think tanks and all that, the people, the Washington mob that Trump says he's going to drain, they don't get it. I don't think Trump is actually going to. I think withdrawing from the TPP, going against all these trade, being against NAFTA and all that, and of course he withdrew from the TPP. That's not a good thing for America either. Like, you don't want. United States needs trade. They need trade. So you don't want to go back to the 1930s and isolationism, and that led to the Depression. So you don't want that. The United States needs to be open to trade. But I'm rambling. I didn't mean to ramble, but I wanted to end this video. Gabriel Kolko, one of the great, and I sort of paraphrase some of his thinking in these remarks, one of the great historians who taught at York University, and you would never see him on the U.S. talk shows or anything because he was too smart. I mean, a lot of these pop historians you see on American talk shows, he was never there, but he was very smart. He's written many books. I had to, I'm going to do this video, and I had to. Politics of War, this was a classic about the U.S. Foreign policy in 43 through 45. Anatomy of War was probably one of the best books ever written on the Vietnam War, the Vietnamese War. The Pentagon bought thousands of copies of this book because they needed to study what they did wrong in the war against the Vietnamese. Confronting the Third World, a great book. I'm going to quote you from one of his last books before he died. He died a couple years ago. And I'm going to quote from, that just sums up what I'm trying to say, okay? This is Another Century of War. There's a small sequel to his book, Century of War, which came out in 1994. And he writes, and I'm going to just end my remarks by this. You should, any of you seeing this video should look up Gabriel Kolko's work. He was brilliant. He writes in the last paragraph of this book, the way American leaders are running the nation's foreign policy is not creating peace or security at home or stability abroad. The reverse is the case. Its interventions have been counterproductive. Everyone, American and those people who are the objects of their efforts, would be far better if the United States did nothing, closed its bases overseas, withdrew its fleets everywhere, and allowed the rest of the world to find its own way without American weapons and troops. And I thought, yeah, that says it all. Stop intervening, stop being the global cop, and stop being obsessed with your credibility. Stop thinking you can solve every crisis and that everyone turns to the United States. It's time for the world, even Canada, other countries, Germany's taking a leadership role when it comes to migrants and immigrants. Other countries should step up. And if the U.S. intervenes less, and if Trump is serious about making America first and withdrawing somewhat from the world and dealing with American problems, which there are many, that's probably better for the world. And let's face it, the world, China's a big power right now. You can't. Russia, I agree with Obama, is a regional power, but still a power. China's a major power, and don't forget, China holds well over $1 trillion in U.S. treasuries, in treasury notes. China holds a lot of U.S. debt, so you can't screw with China. So the world's a complex place. Trump seems a bit of a simpleton, but on the basic notion of withdrawing from the world a bit, that's totally beneficial to the rest of the planet. And anyone who watches this video knows. So, but I had to sort of emphasize that point today, and also emphasize Gabriel Kolko's work, because he was brilliant, and he died a few years ago. But he wrote some great books, and he was a master of studying U.S. foreign policy, all its problems, and whatever. So I'm going to end that video here, and that's it.